Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australia Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leake, the senior content producer at the Australia Institute, and as always, I'm talking to our chief economist, Greg Jericho. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Elinor.
How are we going this week?
Very good. It's cold out there, though.
Oh, it's so cold. Yeah. Greg, last week when we were talking about the minimum wage increase that just happened, we touched on how productivity is often brought up by business groups and similarly minded people as a reason to not raise wages. As you said, that wage rise was really just playing catch up after years of wages stagnating. But productivity is still not doing so great in Australia, and apparently the government agrees.
The best way to think about the difference between our first term and the second term that we won last night, first term was primarily inflation without forgetting productivity. The second term will be primarily productivity without forgetting inflation.
When Albanese spoke at the National Press Club this week, he announced the government will host a roundtable later this year.
At Parliament House in August, we will bring together a group of leaders from the business community, the union movement and civil society. We want to build the broadest possible base of support for further economic reform.
So Greg, as a thought leader yourself, have you got your invitation in the mail?
No, I'm waiting. I'm hitting refresh on the email inbox saying, hurry up, come on.
Oh, maybe you should check your spam.
The junk mail.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, maybe I'm not part of civil society.
No.
Having read my tweets, you might think I'm part of the uncivil society, especially with regard to
That's a good
gas
point.
extensions and AUKUS and basically anything to do with Gaza.
Yeah. But no.
But no, haven't got the invite. But yeah, you're right. This is the topic, I guess, that the government or the economic topic that the government thinks will be its priority for this term. I mean, it's a bit of an amorphous sort of thing saying, we're going to target productivity. I mean, it's always there. As Chalmers said, it was they were targeting inflation but not forgetting about productivity because it's always there in everything governments think about. But I guess he went to the press club, the Prime Minister went to the press club, didn't really have a lot to say, which, to be honest, not surprising. He wasn't going to go to the press club and go, hey, you know that election campaign? Yeah, no, ditch that. Here's all the real stuff we're going to do. Unfortunately, he didn't do that.
Yeah.
But he had to say something, so he announced, this roundtable summit. I'm not sure exactly what it is. That's going to be held in August. Apparently going to bring in everybody, business leaders, because we need them.
Not you, though.
Not me. To talk productivity.
Is productivity in such dire straits, you think, that this needs to be sort of top of the agenda for the government?
Oh, look, yes. I mean, productivity growth is pretty low right now. You could just about say there really isn't any productivity growth at the moment. I mean, one of the – and this is something that's not unique to Australia. Most advanced economies around the world have been seeing falling productivity growth over the past decade or so compared to the 90s. The 90s was the golden era of productivity growth, especially here in Australia. Why is contested, but Paul Keating would very much say it was because of his reforms to enterprise bargaining. But economists like John Quiggin point out the fact that, the actual invention of the World Wide Web and the internet and every office having linked computers and businesses having linked systems probably had a bit more to do with it than enterprise bargaining.
Yeah.
And of course,
although enterprise bargaining still valuable, yes.
Yeah, still valuable, but and obviously you only kind of get those improvements once. And we're all on the internet now, and all the technological improvements we got from that really haven't kept going. Now people might think, AI and things like that might do something. But basically, you've got that combined with the fact that also over the past 20 years, a lot of advanced economies like Australia have really strongly moved from a goods-based economy to a service one. So we've gone from really big manufacturing to a lot more service-based. And as we've said in the past, service-based, really hard to measure, but also generally less productive because it employs people.
Yeah.
The most productive thing you can do is have one person just flicking a switch and the robots all go to work and do it, which is why mining is generally pretty productive because there's a lot of automation in that now, especially once you get to the point of just digging stuff up and putting it on a train and then putting it on a ship.
Yeah.
Building the mine, not so productive because you've got to employ people to build the damn mine and the roads and everything. But once you get to that point of just digging it up, really productive. But if you're a restaurant, if you're a care work and all that, very hard to be productive because you just need people there.
Yeah, and that's just productive, I suppose, in the sense of the equation of output of product per employed person.
Yeah. Or hours of work is generally
yes.
the standard equation that everyone sort of looks at is GDP per hour of work.
Yeah.
And the growth of that has been pretty flat, but also throwing into the mix has been the pandemic and the end of the pandemic, and especially here in Australia, the increase in population through migration has been more pronounced than in other nations, and so that has also fed into our productivity growth because we've got more people working. I mean, this is one of the worst things about productivity, but if you really want to be stark, a good way for Australia to become more productive is to have us produce exactly what we're producing now, but have more unemployed people. Because then we'd be more productive. Then there'd be fewer people working hours, and we're producing the same amount.
Yeah.
Ergo, we're more productive now.
Well, my next question, Greg, was if you were invited to this roundtable, what would you tell the government? But I'm going to guess fewer
not sack
employed.
Everybody.
Yeah,
No.
I don't think that. I'm guessing that's not what you would say.
Yeah, the thing about this is he's going to invite business leaders, unions, and I don't know who civil society groups. I guess we're talking charities, which
lobby groups.
Lobby groups.
The starting point for our government is clear. Our plan for economic growth and productivity is about Australians earning more and keeping more of what they earn. We want to build an economy where growth, wages and productivity all rise together. Business
groups generally talk about, we need to cut company tax to improve productivity, which is a good idea. It just lacks any evidence to support that as as delivering any benefits whatsoever.
It's a good idea, but lacks any evidence to support it.
It's a good idea if you believe in fairies and goblins and the productivity fairies, shall we say? Because basically, company tax just helps you make more profit after tax, essentially.
Yeah.
Doesn't change whether or not your business is profitable. Doesn't change whether or not investing in something is worth doing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, one of the problems with Australia, with our company tax and just our entire economy, is we have such, as we've talked about in the past, such really concentrated industries, real oligopolies where you just got Coles and Woolies doing something, or we've got Westpac, NAB, CAB, and ANZ are the four banks, and that's it. There's no real competition. Well, they actually don't have a lot of incentive to become more productive because they're already making stonks of money. They've got good profits, so why would they care about being more productive? You only care about being more productive in a business if you've got strong competition and other people are making stuff and doing it in a way that they can sell it at the same quality but cheaper because they're doing it more productively. They're producing more with their workers, with their equipment and everything. You're looking at and going, why aren't we doing that? Oh, they've actually got the new tools and the new equipment using. We better invest in that so that we can be more productive. But if you're Coles and Woolies, you're not so worried about that. And if you're a big bank, there's not a lot to do anymore except for just cut more staff. And if you've ever been into a bank branch recently, which most people haven't, because why would you?
No.
You go in there and it's kind of like it almost looks now like an airport lounge where there's no one there except for one person at a counter.
Yeah, a kiosk to check in or something.
So company tax is the one that they want that says will improve productivity, but really it's just about profit. And the other thing they'll talk about is red tape. Got to cut red tape and all this.
What do you mean by red tape exactly?
Oh, look, business will be trying to make it about industrial relations, which the government has already said we're not going to deal with industrial relations, which thank God, because industrial relations is another one that's often put up as being this will cure in productivity and make productivity really good. And again, that only lacks evidence. We've had the Productivity Commission seriously did look into this, I think it was about 10 years ago, and they concluded that we can't actually find any evidence that improving or changing IR laws will increase productivity. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. And we're like, okay.
Maybe we have different definitions of wrong.
What they'll be talking red tape approval for things. And certainly the mining sector will be saying, if you help us approve more gas mines quicker, get rid of those environmental regulations that we need.
Pesky
safety
environmental
regulation. I mean, there are some decent things about red tape where there are certain regulations that differ across states for the same activity. If you can nationalise them or have at least a
standard
that if you're qualified to do something in New South Wales, you're also qualified to do it in Queensland, those type of things, because that helps with businesses getting workers from other states, helps you if you're doing work across borders and things like that. So there are certainly things that can be done, but always the case whenever businesses are talking about red tape and regulation, they kind of very quickly skew into one, get rid of stuff that is stopping us from killing the planet,
or
killing the environment,
workers.
exploiting the thing, or exploiting workers.
Yeah.
And, we're talking also, safety things there as well. So those things will probably be front of mind.
So those are the things that we shouldn't be doing. So what would you suggest the government should do?
One of the things with productivity is there's short-term things and long-term things. Productivity is generally a long-term thing because really when you're talking about productivity, the two things that will help you the most is investment in new equipment, new tools, like having decent computers actually does help. Having decent, and I think we said this, and I might have even said it last week. If you rock up to work and you've got crap computers, and suddenly your boss or your employer gives you a whole new system, and you're like, we've got a system where if I'm doing a task, someone else in the office knows I'm doing that task, and so they're not doing it as well, and that type of stuff. Or where customers are coming in and you're able to immediately find out what they need, and if you've got that, or be able to order stuff, that type of thing. Or just literally, if you're in, if you're in manufacturing, you got better equipment that does something faster.
Yeah,
that because it's new, and that obviously is a bit more short term, but is certainly something that helps. The other thing is having a better workforce. And what we mean by a better workforce is better educated, more trained.
Yeah.
And that is a very long-term thing. And with that as well is the need for research and development so that you have people actually investigating, inventing, building, coming up with new equipment, new ideas, new things. That again requires investment, but it's a bit more longer term than, we just bought the new tool that actually does our job 3 times faster.
Yeah.
So certainly, it won't be sexy, but actually saying, hey, government, how about you really invest in education, especially higher education, but, even say, hey, early childhood education, that's where it all starts from. Problem is you're only going to see the benefits 20 years later when those kids in early childhood now graduate and enter the workforce, but it's very good.
Yep.
Certainly research, investment, higher education.
Fee-free TAFE.
Fee-free TAFE. Absolutely. Getting more people in the workforce who can do things and do them well is vital. It also makes Australia a great place to invest because we've got an educated workforce. So companies are like, yep, I'll come here rather than because you've got the staff ready to go rather than I go to a place that might be cheaper labor, but I have to train them or we have to bring in people from overseas to do it. That's key. But also there are other things within the tax system. For example, the way we tax gas, as we point out, is terrible. But, resource rent taxes are actually quite an efficient and productive way to do it. We should do it properly. Do that across mining as well. We should be taxing and just, taxing gas or having something like a carbon price actually makes our industries more productive because they're like, right, we can't keep using this old shitty fossil fuel diesel stuff that we're just, it's think of it in terms it's a lazy old way of doing it. We have to be innovative. We have to think of something new. How can we do this quicker using less energy than we used to in the past? It's that type of thing that actually spurs investment and spurs changes in work that actually makes things more productive rather than saying, oh, just keep pumping out the diesel and don't worry about investing in new trucks or new anything just because we'll give you a fuel tax credit on your diesel use. So don't go and get those better, more efficient, more productive electric trucks. Keep using the old way. So, lots of things that can be done that aren't just about, oh, let's get rid of red tape and everything will be wonderful. The reason they're worried about it is because it is a long-term issue and it ain't going to be fixed. And also because we're talking service economy, what are we doing with it? Invest more in the services, actually pay them more, helps actually improve productivity because it also encourages more educated, better workers into that sector.
Well, it's a shame you're not going to the roundtable, but maybe we can send the government a link to the podcast.
We will certainly send them a link and a few maybe one pages of here's some ideas, guys.
Oh, that's good. And you've also teed up a great segue for me. You were talking about the fuel tax credit scheme. Well, also in the news this week, Fortescue Metals, the mining company that was founded by Andrew Forrest, is lobbying the government to scale down the fuel tax credit scheme, where mining companies can claim a tax rebate on the diesel that they use to power their mining trucks, for example. Fortescue is lobbying for a $50 million cap on the amount that miners can claim from this rebate, and anything over that will be paid back if it is spent towards decarbonisation or electrification. Greg, what do you make of this? Why are Fortescue lobbying for this?
Yeah, look, Twiggy Forrest gave a speech at the National Press Club last year on this.
Australia's hard-working teachers, nurses and retail workers pay more income tax and GST than the tax paid by the entire fossil fuel industry, according to the Australia Institute. When we, as a nation, and the world at large are crying out for green energy, why are we giving fossil fuel industry a free ride and forcing energy consumers everywhere to only consume fossil fuels?
Look, one of the great things about Twiggy is he actually does agree with the science on climate change, which not many of his mining aficionados
low bar,
do.
But it's great.
Yeah, very low bar. So unlike perhaps Gina Reinhardt, who he has agreed with on certain things in the past, not so much on climate change. And what he's talking about here is this fossil fuel rebate or a fuel tax credit because, as you know, we pay an excise on our petrol, on our diesel use. Notionally and originally that was to help pay for the upkeep of the roads.
Yeah.
But a lot of these mining companies and also farmers, agricultural sector, they don't drive on our roads. They drive on their own roads or on their own properties. So the argument has always been, well, we're not using your road, so why are we paying for this excise? Now, that's a dodgy as hell argument because the link between petrol excise revenue and spending on roads that ended decades ago. And we don't have any taxes where, the tax for this only goes to that. We don't have things like that. It all just goes into the big bucket of consolidated revenue and can get spent however.
Yeah.
Because they don't notionally use our roads, we've been giving them a tax credit. So yes, they pay for it because they pay for it when they get the petrol out of the barrels or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they keep a record of how much they use and the government gives them a credit back of that because they can say, hey, we spent this much millions on diesel to use on our private roads in our own land. We should get that credit and the government gives them the credit. And that's a stonkingly expensive credit.
Yeah.
We're talking $10.8 billion this year.
Gee, is that just miners?
Miners and agriculture. Miners get around 45% of that. So let's say $5 billion.
Okay. Yep. Still,
mining companies, not the most struggling of sectors in Australia in history.
No.
Yeah. So that, the coal miners get $1 billion of it.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with it is it keeps growing every year. Within 4 years, it's going to be over 13 billion. And one of the reasons every year in the budget papers, there's a line underneath the fuel tax credit where it says that the reason why the fuel tax credit is higher now than it was the year before is because of an expected increase in the use of fuels that are eligible. In other words, we're incentivizing people to use diesel so they keep using it more than we thought they were going to.
Who would have thought?
And obviously this is not good for the environment, not good for climate. It's doubly bad because we're actually giving a fossil fuel subsidy, in effect, to fossil fuel industry, like the coal mines. So Twiggy's basically saying, look, this is dumb politics. This is dumb economics because we're continuing to subsidise fossil fuel use. Now, whenever we, for example, try to cut it, business councils try, the poor farmers. The farmers are going to be hurt.
Yeah.
Farmers, just like with the super. Farmers. Now, okay, fair enough. Farmers do, they drive around paddocks and everything. They're not on roads. So, okay. But what Twiggy is saying here is, well, 50 million. Farmers ain't spending $50 million a year on diesel.
Mm.
And if they are, they're likely huge companies. And we're talking massive, huge conglomerates, probably owned by Gina Reinhardt, let's be honest. And so he's saying, let's cap it at 50 million. That'll get the 8 biggest miners, BHP, Rio Tinto, Fortescue and others, but it's not going to hurt your sort of mum and dad farmers or, your family farms. They're still going to be okay. And he says, one, that's going to massively reduce the cost. And it also, as he's saying, incentivise, let's actually do some decarbonisation. So really good policy. We've certainly been pushing this for a very long time because it's just crazy that we continually, spend $10.8 billion a year to encourage people to keep using fossil fuels.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you marry that up with trying to get to net zero or trying to reduce emissions?
Yeah.
Diesel is actually a greenhouse gas. It contributes to greenhouse gases emissions, and the government actually pays you to do it.
Yeah.
Now that's dumb. So good policy.
I mean, you say that the current rebate disincentivizes miners to transition away from using diesel, but what alternatives are there? Could they use, say, electric mining trucks?
Yeah, there actually are.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. And you can't just say, it's too hard. It's like, if we want to get to a zero emissions economy, this is where you have to keep investing, doing to make the electricity batteries better. But it's there. The equipment is there. But right now the government is saying, actually, we don't want to encourage you to do that. In fact, we want to pay you to not do it. And we got to stop that.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
Make America wealthy again. Going to make it wealthy, good and wealthy.
All right. Well, Greg, I think we've probably got time for a very quick tariff corner. Is there anything new in tariff land?
Yes, some news. America and China have notionally done a deal on tariffs, but really it's just a deal to stop being incredibly stupid and just be terrible. So basically we're going back to where they were on Liberation Day. But the other news is the World Bank has actually put out some new estimates on what the tariffs are going to do to the world's economy, and it's not good. It revised down economic growth for the USA this year by 0.9%.
Yep.
So from 2.3% to 1.4%, that's a pretty huge downgrade. Did a similar kind of downgrade for growth across the advanced economies, all because it is predicting that global trade will fall by about 1.3% this year, which is pretty massive. Interestingly, it didn't downgrade the growth forecast for China. So all of this stuff about tariffs has been done by Trump because he wants to attack China and take care of China. The World Bank is saying, actually, America, you're punching yourself in the face. China's still okay. Nothing's happening with China. It's you, America. You're hurting yourself. So it was a quite a nice little report that just reinforced that the tariff policy by Trump is idiotic for America, bad for others, but actually not hurting the one country he really wants to hurt.
Yeah, not quite the economic genius that maybe he
thinks. Bizarrely.
Bizarrely, no. Well, that's probably all we've got time for today, Greg. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Elinor, and thanks everyone for listening. We will be back with another Dollars and Cents, but this episode of Dollars and Cents was recorded on the 12th of June, and some things may have changed. My column this week, Elinor, we didn't even get to my column. What's going on here?
Well, sorry.
My column this week looks at house price. That's why you didn't want to get on its house prices.
Yeah.
Which showed that Elinor still cannot afford a house.
Thanks,
but it also
Greg.
looks at wealth and wealth inequality across Australia and just how shockingly bad all of that is. You can read that on the Guardian Australia site, but for more research, including things on how to improve productivity and better ways to tax, go have a look at our website, australiainstitute.org.au, and just have a gander at everything that is there. Our music, as always, is by Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you again next week.
See ya.